In the light of the fact that we've just had the most recent of Ashley's briefings, and that things are still kind of floating around restructure and what's happening, I just wondered if you'd like to take just a couple of minutes, because probably won't take you very long, just to do a quick that's what it says to me. Draw a picture or representation of what the organisation, as in people and communities organisation, is to you. How do you see it? Is there anything about what you've drawn? We were going to do this in twos, but there's just not much point in doing that. But is there anything about how you have represented the organisation that perhaps surprises you that you saw it that way, or actually seeing it on paper in this format rather than in an A4 sheet of words occurs to you that hadn't occurred to you before? Please say yes. You don't have to. You say that perhaps swap your drawings and see if what the other person can actually pull out what you've drawn. Is it fluffy? Is it really structured? Is it tight? Is it
a complete meander? Give my mind to make it head or tail.
End up with mine.
Yeah.
You make head or tail.
Lots of matchstick people, and some of them are upside down. Humorous element in there. There is humour in it, isn't there, with the snowman and everything.
That's Eric Pickles.
Oh, sorry.
That's like to carry a dustbin bite in the Betsy Weekly. Yeah, it's supposed to be Joe, but I couldn't remember who the health secretary is now. That's very relapsed, isn't it?
Up and down, arrows going in different directions.
Well, that was meant to be people coming together,
yeah.
but at the same time we've got people coming out, or going up, but then some people hit a trampoline and bounce back.
It worries me how detailed John is.
It's surprising because people go and then the next thing you turn around and they're there again. They come back again and they're going. So, yeah. And then that's the pounds being pushed in. And then you've got the directives from Pickles and Gove and Hunt. And I ran out of time to draw Osborne and everybody else.
You can take it away with you and do it.
Yeah.
Okay, has anybody else got anything that compares to this?
No.
Anybody got anything to say? The opposite direction, which was all about the public and what we're here for, as opposed to how we're structured. So I probably wasn't listening to the question properly. So I kind of did that world that involves hospitals and schools and people's lifestyles and their communities, and how, in a sense, what I can see we're about is how we can join up some of the things that support all of those activities and get them right. And the family in the middle as the people.
And obviously some genetically modified fruit because it's as big as the schools.
Yeah, we want less people in hospital and more people eating fruit.
I kind of looked at the complete organisation of Bath and North East Somerset and saw people and communities as being a large part of that, with A14 at the centre and some connections going out from that, but all of us being in a kind of bubble, and likewise bubbles for other service areas, I suppose, because I work across the board in children's service and in property services, and services are still working in silos, but I put ours as one of the largest silos because, well, maybe I shouldn't have called it that, but I see us as the largest grouping, or one of the largest groupings, and that there are still connections to be made between the groupings that are within and will be within the different communities, and that's going to be a big challenge, I think. Notices around. This is something that I put together before our first session, which was in December, about how or what restructure can mean in a visual sense. So the planning stage, some of which we're really deep into, some not quite yet into, and in other areas we're moving on through. But I could see that it sometimes feels as though planning is lots and lots of roads whizzing round, or paths whizzing round a central point, which would be the tree, or the directorate, if I can still call it that, and not really knowing where any of them are going. And it actually looks like there are various explosions along the way. I'm kind of seeing that now, but I didn't before. Moving on then to the actual implementation of the restructure, which means turning things over, changing things, digging things up, and making it ready for moving on, for almost a rebirth. And then out of that, churning up and turning over, planners that we'll get some new growth and new impetus, and we'll be able to achieve more than what we have. And last time, I'd fallen across different phrases that I think actually speak, and that's why I cut this one out and put it with your plain sheet of white paper that was so scary. That says, as human beings, our greatness lies not so much in being able to remake the world, as in being able to remake ourselves. After the last session that we had, and thought, well, we've got managers here, but do we actually know what staff think? Do we know what motivates them to come to work? So I did a random sample, but I thought we would probably not start exactly, but begin this by asking everyone gathered here. Not just the pictures, perhaps.
Yes, no, I realise that. Right.
So these were the questions I actually asked 15 members of staff to give me back their responses anonymously to these questions, because I wanted to see how things compare, how managers feeling, team leaders feeling might be the same or could be quite different from what staff are feeling and thinking at the moment. So you don't have to answer each of these questions individually, but it's just whatever feeling you get from reading all three of those. Why do you come to work? What motivates you to come to work? What motivates you to keep coming to work? Now, I don't want to plant any ideas in your head, but they can be as basic or as idealistic as you like. But it might be useful to see what you think, and then I'll show you what responses I got from staff.
We need to get out more and see what we do.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lucky. I don't get out as often as I used to, but it's always great to go to see the preschool children. Just before Christmas, I went out to one place, and they're having a visit by the fire engine. And this little girl just walks up to me, grabs my hand and says, "Come and see the fire engine." I'm like, okay. And that sort of thing actually puts your feet back well on the ground.
And also you see then what you do at this level, coming down to where you are, working its way, not necessarily down, but to the people that you're serving.
Yeah.
And that makes it worthwhile.
So perhaps, yeah, it's difficult when you're always in the office because you don't always see that. So
it's interesting that we're all saying this. It's quite, we obviously have values about this, but I would say most of the people that sit near me, I would say to them it's just a job, to a lot of them. So I'd be interested to see what the survey results are.
It was quite striking that I gave out 15 pieces of paper, not A5, yes, A5 size, quite small pieces of paper, because I didn't want essays. I also was not looking for a lot of whinging from people. I wanted people to say, why do you come to school? It wasn't surprising to see that 7 people out of 8 said they came because they either came for the money or they came because they needed the money to support their families, to pay rent on their flat, and various other things that people mentioned. That wasn't surprising. The one thing out of it that really did surprise me was the number of people, or the number of comments. I think there were about 12 comments in total, but I'll forward round the actual appraisal of what, a summary of what people said, was because of the social interaction at work, because people have friends at work, because they like their colleagues. And in some ways you could think, well, it's a bit fluffy, isn't it? But I think that's really important, because that's about team support and helping each other and encouraging each other. The motivational ethics behind what are the reasons why they come to work may not be on the same lines or at the same level as some of the things that other people, managers, team leaders think. But it's vital to the success of teams that people feel drawn to each other and can work in that way. There were quite a lot of unuseful comments, like, why can we only carry over 1.5 days flexi a month? So I put those under a car park heading. And various other comments about how people were feeling at the moment. And this actually confirmed photocopier chat that I've heard about people feeling isolated, people not knowing what's going on, people feeling that they're out of the loop with things. And one of the respondents wrote a long answer and actually typed it up and gave it to me, and my heart sank when I saw that. 50 words maximum. But actually what was being said was quite telling, quite negative, but also quite telling. Feeling unsettled in the team because they don't know which direction the team is going in, don't know what the future is going to be. And in some ways, really, that's the purpose of us having these meetings, to actually support managers in supporting their teams in what is to come. Not necessarily what's happening right at this minute, but in preparation for how we as a service are going to move on. But I'll send a précis of the results out to you. I don't think anyone's identifiable by what they've said. I asked them to be anonymous because I wanted very real answers, and I asked them to be honest, and I believe most of them were. I think there were 2 comments, and I would guess from the way that it was phrased that these people were young, actually looking to the jobs that they have now as being a much longer term thing, actually looking for a career and a career path. And I thought that was really encouraging. That was good.
We talked about it after the last meeting, that the council has resolved under elementary support, so looking to enhance and develop over this year in particular. Because people not. I know we seem to always get the email about preparing for your retirement, a popular one. For a lot of us, that seems still quite a long way away. Yeah. I would like to go skiing, but not really. But there are a lot of other things out there as well, and more support as well, and peer support, and coaching and mentoring, and a whole range of things linked to, there's change now, but there's been change for a long time in the back.
And Steve Tom is running some day-long workshops on managing for change, but he actually comes into service areas and does that rather than expecting anybody to come. It's really focused on the actual work that people are doing. So that might be a thought for us for a bit further down the line. Perhaps either to get them to come in to do some shorter workshops, or we'll find a way to work it out. So, thank you for coming. I hope you didn't mind starting by drawing pictures.
Next time I'll bring my colour and pencil.
Yes, all right, I can try and provide some if you like. That would be good. And please encourage your other colleagues perhaps to come again.
I was going to say, can I ask a good question?
Yeah.
Why you came and why do you think other people? Is that right?
Well, yeah, why I came is, I think managers should be talking to each other at things like this. And, you know, I welcome the corporate staff regularly, and I didn't make it this week, but I mean, I do make nearly all of those things, and I think all those things are quite important, so we should talk to each other. Why they didn't come, maybe, well, Friday I think is a factor. A lot of people are not in on Friday. I don't know really.
Yeah. We'll try and change the days of the week around a bit more, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that I've got a lot of work, so it is hard. I can see why people feel it's hard sort of putting time away for these sorts of things.
Well, I think I came because, like Lynn was saying, there is a lot of photocopier talk, and you know, people do seem worried about change. Although, like you said, change has been happening for a long time. So I think it is important to think about, okay, how can we make sure that, you know, as managers we're sending out the right message and we're giving people that support. In terms of why people didn't come, I mean, I know that every team meeting that I've chaired, I've kind of brung it up, you know, the restructure is happening, how do you all feel about it, if you need to talk about it, and I kind of just get, well, no, we're all fine, you know, we're always going through change, it's fine, it's not an issue. So if other teams are feeding back the same things to their managers, they might think, well, actually, you know, my team are okay, so I've got another meeting I need to go to. I won't prioritise this.
Have another one?
Spread the word.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
spread the word. Come back smiling, okay? Walk into the office smiling.
That was great.
Oh, you did.